Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Women Have Needs Too. Women have needs too. Right now, I need to know that every child can learn. Today, we have joining us Phyl Macomber. She is an award-winning speaker, best-selling author, and education specialist who has trained thousands of educators around the globe, advocating for children of all abilities to reach their potential in an inclusive environment. Phil's Amazon #1 bestseller, Every Child Can Learn, Your Roadmap to Inclusive Education, is being referred to as common sense education by educators around the world. Phyl, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm so excited to have you on. As you know, I come from a family of educators, and we know what the tribulations and trials and tribulations that education has gone through. Things are all constantly changing, and I am so excited to learn more about your system, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that makes education simplified, right?
Well, education has become pretty complicated, as we've discussed in the past, Linda, and you've experienced firsthand, coming from a family of educators, that what happened way back then is not happening now. This is what's happening now.
That long division stuff.
Oh my, there are so many things that people are responsible for, and there are half-dues, and the half-dues change from year to year. And sometimes people feel like they're in this funnel cloud, like a tornado, and where are you going to land? And hopefully, fingers crossed, in Oz, right? And you know, you're on a good yellow brick road, but sometimes that really gives you a lot of anxiety. We need to simplify.
Simplify is the word. You know, I was talking about long division. I'm all about keeping things simple. You know, from getting from point A to point B, let's see the simple and the best way that we can get all of our children educated. And it seems like we go in a roundabout way these days. And God bless the educators, because all they want to do is help their children, you know, help their students, you know, become the best students and best learners that they can be, right?
Yeah. You know, when you first get into education, I think every educator, whether you are in general education as a classroom teacher, you are in special education, you are a paraeducator or a speech therapist or occupational therapist, or even an administrator, it's all about shaping the lives of children to be contributing members of their community with purpose and meaning.
Amen.
And that's why people get into education, not to teach to the test, not to have unreasonable pacing guides, not to be able to check things off the list and race through curriculum. That's not why we do what we do, but it seems to have gotten really out of control. And there are some reasonable ways to bring control back to your instruction and simplify learning for children, so you could simplify your teaching.
And I think that's the beauty of what we're going to learn about today, is keeping it simple. And I just, you know, I'm not here to bash the system, because the system is working somewhat. But I just feel like it's been a little, I don't want to say derailed, but I just feel like, and you brought it up, about teaching to the test. I feel like that has gotten us off path a little bit. And if there was just a way, you know, the P.A.C.T way, which we're going to talk about today, is to keep it simple so everybody is successful. So every student, every child is successful. And let's discuss that. Tell me what the P.A.C.T is all about.
The P.A.C.T is about focusing on a few things, the essential things that we need to do in education that matter, that will then generalize to meaningful understanding and then sharing knowledge. And it's 4 basic steps. I say in my seminars and my keynote addresses and in my mentoring and coaching that we do not need to do 50 things in order to be able to deliver curriculum and build skills with children. We don't even need to do 25 things. honestly, Linda, we don't even need to do 5 essential things. There's 4 basic steps. Could I
Okay.
tell you about what the steps are?
Please, please. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
The first step is learning about the topic, building strong vocabulary skills. And, we know that strong vocabulary skills build academic success, but also social communication success. And it's all about the relationship and the rapport that we are teaching students to have with each other, with the adults, and student ratio, and then also in their community. So learning about it, then reading about whatever the topic is. That way we're building a real strong understanding. And then sharing it out, writing about it and talking about it in formal speaking roles. 4 things, not 25, not 10, not even 5. 4 basic things. And ironically so, when my framework was published, the P.A.C.T, which outlines learn about, read about, write about, and talk about, it all aligns to the 4 areas of educational standards. And that's in the United States, but it's also outside of the United States, in parts of Canada and in other locations around the world. We all have educational standards on some level that we need to implement. And it's pretty easy to understand, not just for teachers, for families when they provide homework support, right? And we hope that we have family engagement in the schools, not just involvement, okay? That we're really engaging parents to be a part of their child's education. But it's easy for the kids to understand.
Right.
And that's what it's about, right?
I feel like when I was in elementary school, which was a heck of a long time ago, but I feel like that I was taught in that manner. Is that possible?
Oh, teachers have been doing parts of this
Okay.
all the time.
Okay.
What is unique about the P.A.C.T, because some people might say, well, Phyl, I agree, and I've taught that for 20 years as a teacher.
Right.
And I have kids do writing projects, and I have kids, do readings of articles or, fiction books or whatever. The unique part about the P.A.C.T is taking one topic, let's say it's in science, like the solar system, for example. We're going to do the planets, celestial bodies in space, like comets, and that's a very common non-country specific, because I provide support outside of the United States as well. In Europe, you can study the solar system as well. It's not country specific curriculum, right? So students would learn about the planets, then they would dive in deep and read about all important details about each of those planets, including the sun. Then they would write about it. They pick one planet, for example. They research it. They dive in deep. They might create a diorama of that planet. Why? Because they then talk about it in an oral presentation. It's the sequence of all of it linking and going together. And although it's simple, it's not snorkeling. We're not snorkeling curriculum like, oh, we know just a little bit about this, next. We know a little bit about this, next. We're scuba diving. Kids are really understanding what they're doing and why.
I love it. So what type of organizations do you work with to get this implicated, to get the P.A.C.T implemented?
I certainly work with public school systems, of course. And, some people might say, Phyl, like, how does that work? I typically would contract with them as either a coach or a consultant related to training people. I also provide the seminars, of course, so more formal professional development. But outside of the public school systems in different geographic areas, I also work with private schools, such as Waldorf schools, Montessori schools. I've also worked with families who homeschool, which is so near and dear to my heart. Linda, I grew up in a large Italian family. Both my sister and I are adopted. And I feel so lucky to have had the family that I have. And I grew up with my aunts and uncles and my grandparents raising me, not just my parents.
That's how it's done in the Italian families.
Exactly. And it's such a blessing in my life. And I am very, very close to my first cousins who are like siblings to me.
Oh.
And one of my older cousins, whose name is Pam, has an intellectual disability. Back then it was called mental retardation. And so I feel like I started learning about meaningful inclusion, purposeful instruction from my Aunt Nellie and Uncle Sammy when I was a kid, because Pam had such effortless community and family inclusion until kindergarten, when she was to enter the kindergarten classroom and everybody thought she needed to go to a special school because, oh my, we might not be able to do this. And it was a real education for her elementary school that Pam needed to be a part of a part of the community. And so a foundational principle of the P.A.C.T framework is that it's not just for kids at grade level. It's not just for kids above grade level. It's also for students with special needs, English language learners, those on the autism spectrum, those with language-based learning disabilities, and so on. It is
So it's
everyone,
inclusive of all abilities. It sounds
so that every child can learn using the same type of systems.
Oh, you mean when you said every child, you meant every child?
All means all, right? There's no other definition to that. And so I think that one of the biggest mistakes since I've been in the field, which has now been, at the time of our recording, 33 years, since 1988, I've served in the field of education. And I have seen so many times that general education and special education do very different things. When the biggest myth in education is that students receiving special ed services, or those that have different learning differences or disabilities that are identified, need such different teaching strategies than those that can be delivered in the general classroom. When the truth of the matter is, the same strategies, sound, purposeful teaching that we use in special education should be used with children of all abilities, including those special needs to gifted, talented, because good teaching is good teaching, Linda.
Right. So what you're saying is that the child with the different ability will learn at the same pace as the child with even the higher abilities. Is that what you're saying?
They can participate in the same types of activities with possibly some modifications, right? So let's go back to our solar system example.
Okay.
So many of our students at grade level and above grade level are learning about all the different planets, asteroids, comets, meteorites, all of that. And maybe some of our students receiving special ed services are only focusing on the planets. They're not focusing on all those other celestial bodies in space because that may be too abstract for them.
Right.
I'm not saying that that is always the case. I'm just giving that as an example. But then when reading about it, their text may be a little more simplified. And it might always follow, outer planet, inner planet versus all the different numbers of the diameters and the distance from the sun and all of that. However, they are participating in the same types of activities at their level in the classroom.
Wow.
Participating. They're not off in a corner behind a divider.
Right.
That's not inclusion.
That's
Inclusion is meaningful contributions and being given the opportunity to make a contribution.
So the P.A.C.T, the P period, A period, C period, T period, what does it stand for?
Good question. That's a very common question. The acronym stands for Technology Helps Easy and Practical. There's that easy and practical in there. Accessible curriculum teaching. And accessible means every student can participate. That's the every child can learn component. And so some people go, technology, really, Phil? Well, I'm holding up right here a sticky notepad and maybe a Sharpie marker, right?
Yeah,
That's low technology.
that's low
You're
technology,
using a tool to write sticky notes and brainstorm
right?
for the Write About module.
I'm a sticky note freak.
Me too. I like have office supply as like a middle name. I love that level of organization. I love all of it, but I'm also a technology consultant. And one of the things that I've learned in the schools is there's always issues with technology. So you better have a backup plan.
Mhm.
And any good teacher knows that, because
Oh.
any teacher listening to this or any parent who has their child bring home their Chromebook or their iPad or whatever know that sometimes it's an evening of what I call homework headaches, right?
So can we talk about that for a minute? Because even if educators are watching right now, and maybe some superintendents of schools, you never know, what can parents do now before their school system gets the P.A.C.T in their classroom?
This is so easy to implement at home and in the community.
Yay.
I have countless parents implementing the principles of learn about, read about, write about, talk about at home. Let's do an example of this summer, you're going to a family reunion. Okay. Everyone's very excited. They're able to see each other again, right? And so even though it might not be this big, huge gathering, it might be a small regionally based gathering. And so the parents might say, now remember, a family reunion is about seeing people. Let's give a learn about definition for that you don't always see in your family. They're not always at your birthday parties. They're not always, coming for the holidays or whatever. This is the one time of year where we get together and have a nice meal together. And in our family, it's called a cookout or a clam bake or whatever, right? That's your nice learn about. Your read about might be, okay, so here's the map to the campground that we're all going to go to. Well, let's look at all the different things that we can do. We can go canoeing. We can have the cookout. We could, do paddle boats and so on. We can play badminton. So there might be some nice read about supports that are there. The write about is, okay, which one of you is going to be in charge of doing our snap, snap, snap photo album? And we're going to surprise our family members at Christmas. And we're going to create a photo book online with little captions underneath it and gift it to somebody. And then when we get back and unpack at home, we're all going to share what our favorite part of the family reunion was. That's our talk about. Bam, you're doing the P.A.C.T at home. It is so easy.
That's great. That's great.
Does that make sense, Linda?
Yeah, makes total sense. I just, how long ago did you come up with this?
The P.A.C.T first birthed, so to speak. Florida is a very special spot to me, by the way, because I know you're located in that state.
Yeah.
It birthed at a national conference that I was teaching at. And a colleague of mine by the name of Meg Turek approached me by the pool in Orlando at the conference. I was just finishing teaching a session, and she had asked me to write an article for her educational publication because she was the managing editor of a publication in education called Closing the Gap Solutions. And right there, that's what I'm about. Close the gap between gen ed and special ed, right?
Love it.
And honestly, Linda, I looked at her with a baffled look on my face and I said, you want me to write an article? What would I possibly write about? She said, Phyl, I want you to find your voice and write about what you're passionate about, something in your belief system. And when you get on that plane to go back to New England, because I live in the state of Vermont, she said, I want you to think about something that matters to you. Wow. And I want your voice to be heard in this article. And that birthed me saying, I think people make things way too hard. I think we need to streamline to the most important brain-based tasks because the research supports this framework. And I also have my own research now for the framework. And that was in 2009. Wow. And so my first book, The Power of the P.A.C.T, which is back there, which is a full color textbook, was published in 2010. And it was a whirlwind year, Linda. I did like 6 national presentations. I presented at an international conference. I was in a recording studio with a best-selling author who interviewed me for like an iTunes CD type of set to teach teachers about the P.A.C.T. And then I went on a like 5-city New England tour with teaching seminars, all within like 12 months.
That's fantastic.
It was, and it's been very grateful to see this grow in locations that matter to me. Like I do a lot of work now in countries in Africa, and that matters to me. It's making a difference.
God bless you. I have to tell you something that I just remembered. The last time we talked, you shared a technique with me, the color coding. I had a dream last night that I was color coding everything.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, we probably should talk about the color coding because it's a major component.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about it. We have a few minutes.
Okay. Yes, the Learn About module is color-coded green. Green means go. Let's start with building strong vocabulary skills. And then, now that we know what these words mean, because we learned about them, let's read about them and dive, blue, color coding, into the sea of knowledge. So let's learn a lot more details about all these concepts now, so we have a good understanding of it. Write about is color-coded yellow, like a number 2 pencil, or like you shared with me, like a yellow light bulb.
The light bulb going off in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, in your brain. That stuck with me when you said that to me. And then, so that's a nice way for students to be able to plot out their thoughts of what they learned and read about. And then the Talk About module is color-coded red, cherry on the sundae, because now we've got some loud and proud sharing. And kids are feeling strong to be in leadership positions in their classroom, in various communication roles. So
that's great. I love it. I can't believe it was so funny. I did, and I just remembered I was color coding in my sleep last night.
Well, you know, Linda, it's interesting. Someone reminded me just last week about a story I had shared in one of my keynote addresses, and it was of the cutest little boy. He had quite a British accent because his father was from England, and his mother was a teacher, and they reside in the United States now. And little Charlie is on the autism spectrum, and when he entered kindergarten, every day he wore a little bow tie. He was a cutie patootie. And so he looked at me because he was using this framework in his classroom and in his special ed setting for specialized instruction. And he looked up at me and said, "Miss Phyl, do you think in colors in your brain like I do now? Because it helps my brain know what to do."
Oh,
Linda, I like started crying. It was so meaningful to me. And
it's such a simple thing, but it's made such an impact in his life and his learning. That, boom.
yeah,
That's it. That's the coup de grace, the bow on the top, the cherry on the top, like you say.
yeah.
I just love it. Well, our time is up today.
Oh,
Maybe
I so enjoyed talking.
We can have some more learning sessions. How fun would that be?
That would be my pleasure. I have so enjoyed talking with you today about simplifying education. And people can learn more by going to my website at aboutthepact.com. That's about the P-A-C-T.com. And they can reach out to me on social media as well.
Beautiful. And that's Phyl, P-H-Y-L, Macomber, M-A-C-O-M-B-E-R. So contact Phyl if you have anything to do with the educational system in your community. Reach out to Phyl. Reach out to me, and I'll connect you if you have to. But thank you so much, Phyl, for being here today. And we're just gonna make a pact that we're gonna education simple.
I agree. It's a pact for sure. And I look forward to talking with you again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Phyl. Have a good day.
Thank you.